Hello everyone, welcome to a new segment I like to call This Old Cemetery. Today we're going to be visiting San Juan Cemetery, which is located right next to Mission San Juan, here in the south side of San Antonio, Texas. It's a very small cemetery, about maybe half an acre of land. It's very crowded, and as you could tell already, very unkept in some areas. This segment is going to be about appreciating old cemeteries and kind of giving awareness of these cemeteries that are in and around San Antonio, Texas. So let's get started. Here we have a metal placard with the date of birth and date of death, and right next to it is a tombstone with no date of birth or date of death at all. Here you can see an example of how overgrown some of these graves are here with grass and everything. There are different types of graves here. Here you see a child's grave, and there are a lot of graves like that around here. And you have graves that have these brick perimeters around them. There are also tombstones that have the picture of the people that are buried there. This cemetery is pretty well decorated. I'm assuming that these decorations have been left here for quite some time, since there's no groundskeeper to throw away these decorations after a certain period of time. Here we have some young people's graves here. This person was about 20 years old. Here we have a baby grave. Here's another one as well. I'm assuming this grave here is the mother of that infant child. Here we have another infant grave. Mind you, these graves are all in the entrance of this cemetery. As you could tell, these tombstones here are really weathered. It makes sense since these graves date back from the 1940s. So right next to the cemetery, there's a train track that leads you all the way to the railroad crossing, known here as the Haunted Ghost Tracks of San Antonio. Recently though, they did some renovations to this railroad crossing. They put in some new tracks, they changed the grade of the road, so that the quote-unquote ghost kids won't be able to push you over to safety. I'm not gonna lie though, I've passed by this road and this area at night, and it's pretty creepy. This tombstone here caught my attention. Just look at the detail of this angel on the side here. Most of these tombstones have their back up against the fence, except for this one here. This grave is pretty recent. This person was a Cowboys and a Spurs fan. It seems like in all these old cemeteries, they just put everyone wherever they could fit. There's no single file row of graves, as you could see here. This grave right here was interesting. Under Concepcion, there is no year of birth, and I guess it'll always be a mystery. Here we have some tombstones that have sunk into the ground throughout the years. You can just barely make out what they say. Here's another detailed tombstone. Just look at the carving of the saint holding a child here. This area here was very colorful and festive. Here's a closer look. Notice how the windmills are turning on the top right screen. It was pretty windy for a hot and humid day. And for the people that live in South Texas, you know how hot it could be during the summer. Here's one of the 2 recent graves. This person died in early 2018, as you can see here. His grave is very well decorated. Here we have a tombstone in Spanish. I can't read Spanish, but if there's anyone out there that's watching who can, please let me know what it says. Here we are heading towards the back of the cemetery. Now, if you're a fan of tejano music, you might know the last name of Navara. Watch at the very end for a surprise. Here we have a World War II vet. It's interesting to me that they decided to bury him here instead of a military cemetery. We are now towards the back of the cemetery. Notice this cross that is tipped over. Here we have a grave of a couple. The wife died at a very young age, and 26 years later, her husband went to meet her in eternity. You know, it's interesting that we have graves here that are full of details, or it could be quite simple, like this metal marker here. And some, unfortunately, are just too hard to read. So now we are at the last row at the back of the cemetery. The placement of these graves were kind of odd. I look to my left, and there's a tombstone facing me. I look to my right, and there's a tombstone facing me. Now the distance between these tombstones are about maybe 8 feet apart. It would mean that somehow these people were buried toe to toe, and I have no clue how they accomplished that. Here we have some nice white marble tombstones with a picture of the person buried here. One even has how old they were when they died. Now, coming up here in a few seconds, there's a nice feature in this cemetery. They actually have a creek that flows through the side of the cemetery that I think connects to the Mission Aqueduct. Watch. So this was an interesting find. On an old grave here that dates back to the 1880s, there was what looked like to be a bank deposit slip. I looked at it, and it said on there, "Hello, my name is Jim, great-grandson," and it had a phone number on it, which I blocked out with my thumb. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of curious and calling that number to see who's on the other end. Here we have a very nice, prominent, handmade cross. And here we have the Ibarra babies that are buried here. And right over here is the Montes family. Here we have a U.S. Navy veteran. And here's another grave of a couple. This row here, where they're buried at, is full of the Zuniga family. There are many rows of graves that are designated for families here in this cemetery. This right here is the most recent grave. This person died in April of 2018. The last name on this tombstone caught my attention because the last name Graff is the name of the road that this cemetery is on. This person, or his family members, must have had some type of important significance in the city to get a road named after them. Or maybe it's just a coincidence. Here you can see that a tree limb broke off, so I did my part on removing it off the grave here. I really do hope that the video will bring awareness to the small cemeteries in San Antonio, or anywhere you may be. The grounds here aren't in bad shape, but it would be nice to have the community get together and clean things up a bit. Here we have an old tombstone, but right in front of it is a pretty new tombstone. Was this person buried on top of someone? Who knows? Here we have the graves of Rosie and Robert Terrace. It's a simple grave marker that someone has made, and everything is written by Sharpie. On each cross it says that they died in 2012. So either they died together on the same day, or on different dates on the same year. So remember that last name, Navara, that I told you about earlier? Well, here's another Navara grave. Now this person right here that we're walking up towards has the first name Emilio Navara. And if, again, you're a Tejano fan and you're from South Texas, then you know which grave you're going to see next. Here we have the grave of Emilio Navara III. He's well known in the Tejano community for his Tejano music, and he also did English country music. He died in his sleep from a massive heart attack at the age of 53. Here, he is buried next to his father. If you haven't heard of his music, I totally recommend hearing it. It's really good. That concludes our tour of this old cemetery. Join me next time when we visit Davenport Cemetery, which is located in the outskirts of San Antonio, Texas. Make sure to leave your comments in the comment section below, and be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.